Hello.
We are back. We're here at the cellar of Old North State Winery.
The old barrel room.
We are hoping that it doesn't get too loud down here because they are doing some work and they said they would be quiet. So if you do hear some rattling around, it's because they're working hard.
And it's exciting stuff. We have a lot of progress coming to the barrel room of Old North State Winery. So be looking out for some great upfitting improvements.
Absolutely. So this is our virtual tasting for the tasting we do live and in person on Thursdays at 6 p.m. And we often do it right here in the cellar as well. And with that being said, you obviously are not with us because you're doing the virtual, and we're glad that you are. These are 2 of the 4 wines that we'll be serving on Thursday. And wow, we've got some nice ones here, Chef. I think you're going to dig these. I like to surprise Chef with these.
Yes,
tasting
I'm
them for
blind
the first.
taste every week. It's rare. Sometimes I'll get a sip. It's pretty rare. But normally it's a blind tasting for me. And of course, Chef Ed's always scouted and tasted and refined and cut people out and has it down to what he knows will work. But for me, it's always, thank you so much, thank you. It's always it's like a mystery box every week. I love it. So much fun.
Yeah, that's part of the fun, right?
It is part of
That's
the fun.
part of the fun for you guys out there too. And we try to be diverse and not show the same kind of varietals. Try to mix it up. I think we're going to be pleasantly comfortable in this. These aren't way outside of your wheel well, so to speak. These are pretty straightforward wines, but they're also incredibly delicious and great values.
Wow.
So let's start off. The weather's finally starting to break a little. We're here in late March. It'll be April next week, and it's rosé time. And so we have a beautiful old vine rosé from Marietta, one of our favorite of the wineries, I would say. Chef, we love them for their Syrahs, all kinds of red blends.
Been doing it forever too. Hailing out of Geyserville, which is a mecca, if you will, for a lot of these big Rhone varietals.
Yeah. And this is very Provence-like. It's that classic pink hue, and great spice on this. You're gonna find, Chef.
It's divine.
Yeah, isn't that nice? So we have in traditional fashion, Syrah Grenache blend. You get a rosé from red skinned grapes that are just limited contact. Could be 10 to 12 or 16 hours. Depends on how cold the juice is kept. But so the color from the wine comes from skin contact over time. So you limit the time, you limit the color extraction. So the thing about rosés is they should have some color, but people always say, well, where do you draw the line? It's really where tannins are involved. If they leave them in there long enough to where tannins are coming out, you've probably gone a little bit too far, because most rosés, you want them to be kind of fresh and fun, and not overly, they're dry, don't get me wrong, but not tannic.
A lot of them are bone dry, and I would think it's very challenging, because I'm not a winemaker. I just play one on TV. But I think this would be a very challenging thing to get the color just right. I don't know how you peek in, to continue to check the hue on the contact. I would imagine that's a very difficult thing that takes a lot of years of practice. But we see them all over the map. Like the Roger is very dark, and a lot of the Tavelles are very dark and ready to age. But most, I would say, from what I've learned from you, most of them are it's party time, ready to drink. But some of them, like the Tavelles and the Rogers, are laying down a couple of years and watch them evolve. I guess they're kind of all over the map, and you kind of have to know. I guess price points dictate that a lot too. What kind of leads you in the, if you're up in the, you're in the upper 20s on a rosé, it's probably not going to be a Saturday afternoon at the pool one.
Yeah.
But you never know. I guess there's lots of things that play into that.
Well, Chef, we are blessed to have a great outlet for rosés at your chef's table. And I always enjoy when I have the opportunity to slide one in. I think the last one we did was that Sancerre rosé.
The Sancerre rosé.
That was a completely different kind of style. You know, it's interesting how they.
It really was.
Yeah, they deliver very intense.
Was that not a? I would say one of the. It's easy to say about all of them, but one of the better pairings of the night. People were really animated about having that style of wine. It's so unusual. You know, when you know a Sancerre and you know a rosé, you know, the two together are an eclectic mix, and so that was a really big hit.
Yeah, but so this is just kind of what you want from a rosé. This is not, you know, this is not going to surprise you. It's going to, you're going to be like, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you,
it
Marietta.
will delight you.
Thank you, Marietta, because this is
delightful.
exactly what I was craving.
Yeah.
And you know what I do like about this, and I'm certain it's because it's California, you have all that kind of, you know, that California fruit, which you would expect. And there's like, I get notes of fennel out, which I just love out of this. And that makes me feel like it's very French. And I think of, you know, things like Pernod and, you know, just great vegetable dishes from France.
Well, even the Bordeaux.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, it is certainly a common denominator in French wines to get that fennel anise thing that you really don't see that occurring naturally in a lot of other places.
And that's why I was really drawn to this. That element really drew me into this wine. And then, of course, you know, what I would say separates this from Provence is the finish, where Provence almost always has a little touch of bitterness at the end, which is it is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, that's not a knock. It's just a characteristic, and that's why it's so good with food. But this is just beautiful, silky, smooth finish.
Well, and I think one of the advantages, you know, because they're all different. There's nothing one better than the other. But in my uneducated opinion, I think the Provence style needs food.
Yeah.
I mean, I can drink a Provence rosé, and you can too on its own.
Yeah.
But I think most people would want that to have an accompaniment.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Where the accompaniment is the glass.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is fabulous.
Yeah, and this would be great.
What fun.
This would be great for your brunches, for your lunches. You know, of course, you know,
on the way to the post office.
Like Chef was saying, just, you know, swinging on the, you know, on the front porch, taking it easy, soaking up some rays. Be a great way to end an afternoon. Chef, has anything bounced around in your brain?
Yeah, I mean, we love pork with rosé.
We do. We've always been a big fan.
And
just
so,
like in every kind of pork.
Every kind of pork, and sometimes, like, you know, I'll put a dish out there, and Chef Ed will want to put a rosé near it, and you know, we'll even talk about it, like, well, let's add some bacon or some sausage,
right,
to get something to kind of get it towards that wine, kind of the collaborative process that we go through every week, and sometimes we need to do that kind of thing to make it all work. And so in that spirit, we're doing a little kebab, but this is going to be in the traditional style, not in the style of kebab that you have chopped things. You know, normally, you know, in America, you have kebabs that have like
onions, peppers,
cubed veggies and things. And this kebab is going to be more in the you know, Indian or Mediterranean style, where we take ground meat. And we're taking ground pork from Darcy Farms, always world class, of course. And we're going to spice that up, and we're going to just like mold that onto our skewer and sear it and roast it, so it looks more like a meat lollipop.
Nice.
Which is, you know, what everybody wants more of in their life.
Absolutely.
It's meat lollipops. And so the pork on this, and we're gonna spice it a little bit, but it's not gonna be spicy. But just because pork, especially ground pork, because we're not dealing with sausage here, we need to wake it up a little bit so it's not bland and you know, dies against this wine. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think that we're gonna play a lot with that theme this week, all across the menu and the chef's table and the tasting, and it's gonna be fun.
Well, speaking of chef's table, we got a big weekend.
Oh boy, we gotta get our we've got a lot going on, and luckily, Ed and I have hit the ground running this week. We've been working on it for quite some time already. And so luckily the numbers are matching the effort. So we've got a lot happening. We're already collaborating on some fun stuff, and it's gonna be a banner weekend here at the winery.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Friday morning taste through.
We might even start some tomorrow.
All right. So if you haven't done the chef's table, you got to do it.
Gotta do it.
Also,
Gotta do
keep
it.
in mind that we do offer a mini version at lunchtime by reservation. We typically do it on Wednesdays, but we can adjust that according to demand. And
Try to give us a day or two notice. It's hard to do on a whim,
Oh yeah.
but we most certainly are flexible.
I was thinking more like a week notice, chef.
Well,
But,
that would be ideal.
but you are a sweetheart. You're not a no man. You're a yes.
I'm really not in the no business.
No. But that is a great experience. If you haven't done that, that'd be great to see. You get to watch this guy work his magic in person and ask him questions and throw tomatoes at him, whatever you want to do.
Whatever you want to do, that's what I'm here for. And the wines are delicious. It's obviously a very smaller format. You know, you're probably looking at, depending on the Q&A part of the Q&A part of the lunch, you know, you're probably looking at 45, 50 minutes. That's not something that would,
You
you
could
have
actually
to build your day around. You can have that great experience. And of course, as we grow and do more weekend offerings, you know, certainly that is, lends itself to more lingering.
Sure. And that could also be, you know, in that format, you could actually
Delicious.
make it a great business lunch if you're wanting to
Oh,
impress the
custom
clients.
made for it.
You can
Custom
still
made.
be in and out in a reasonable amount of time, and also have a culinary experience at the same time.
And unlike the weekends where the wine pairings are included, you can have an optional wine pairing during the week, which, you know, obviously it's not the same without the wine, but at the same time, if you're having a business lunch, you know, depending on the culture of your particular business, it may not be
Sure.
what you want to do. So unlike the weekends, we can do it without wine. We don't want to.
Like if
Or
you're
maybe,
having an AA meeting,
Right.
you probably wouldn't want to
You
have
probably
one.
wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Of course, I would, because my mama didn't raise a quitter. But you know, I'm sure Chef Ed here could even pair a couple of our 6 craft beers or all manner
Oh,
of
yeah,
things.
why
So
not?
you could do all sorts of cool stuff at
Do
lunch.
fancy cocktails too.
You betcha.
So we're gonna stay on the West Coast. We're going up from California to Washington, Columbia
Oh
Valley.
boy,
Yeah,
just flew over there.
This is not far from where Chef was last week.
Thank you very much.
Chef was in Oregon. We're just north in Washington State. And Matthews is one of our favorite boutique wineries. You know, they make incredible Merlots and Cabs, and this happens to be a blend of both. And huge fan of this winery, and I'm a huge fan of Washington wines because of that color. Look at that extraction. It's so dark. And this is called their Blackboard Red Blend. So basically 50-50. It's like 51-49, basically.
Which is really more important if you own a company than it is if you're in it.
Right, yeah.
You're on the 49 end of that.
So I guess you could say it's like a Bordeaux blend. You know, it's wow, absolutely beautiful nose.
Wowzers. That
So
is
toasty.
silky and smoky and the softest finish you've ever had in your life. It is just, it lands like a pillow on your palate, and I mean that in a good way, not in a unflavorful way. That tastes 10 years old.
It's really
You normally have
drinking
to age a
beautifully.
wine 10 years to get that.
It does have
that
a
feel,
a
that
softness,
silkiness,
a homogenization, if that's a word. It's everything is together. Everything is. There's nothing pops on this, which is and I mean that in a good way. Sometimes we want things to pop, but like when you have this beautiful palate that's just consistent from start to finish in wine, I think that's just a beautiful thing, and nothing's out of balance. There's no spikes or valleys in the taste. Just really concentrated fruit not surprisingly, because this winery is getting 2 more hours of sunlight than this winery because it's so much further north during growing season.
Northern growing.
So
How in the world do they do that? I mean, so you're looking at a 19,
Mhm.
and I'm not even gonna, I know everybody's counting 2022 as a year, but
No,
we haven't been long
It's
enough.
like 2 1/4.
So it's 2 1/4 at best.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with grapes like Cab and Merlot,
Mhm.
which are typically very unruly early
Sure.
on.
Yeah.
Normally these
Yeah.
are the lay down grapes.
Mhm.
And I always hate when people say it has chocolate in the wine, because I can never pick up on that. Because
Yeah.
it's always like a cheap little thing
Yeah.
that's just thrown.
I
I
gotta-
get it on this.
There's
There is so much cocoa and chocolate on this, but in a good way. I can't believe it.
Yeah, so I mean,
My mom was
I
just
have-
telling me, I can't believe I didn't answer that.
I have blind spots just like anybody else in my palate. When Dan Nelson, my mentor, was teaching me the world of wine, for me, onions, like if there's any kind of
Wow.
onion or garlicky kind of things, I'm kind of blind to it. And actually, I was really having a hard time picking out pepper out of wine when I first started, believe it or not.
Well, maybe because your spice tolerance.
Well, I think it's because, 25, 30 years in a professional kitchen, cutting all those things, eating all those things all the
Kind of
time, being
immune.
around
Yeah.
being around them a lot.
You're immune.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
When you have a very spicy palate, I mean, you can eat really spicy food, and you enjoy spicy food. So I wonder if a subtle pepper is like, that's
Yeah.
probably an area that you're not as
Yeah,
in
I
tune
might
to
have-
as.
Yeah, I might have
as to
punched
the fruit and
that
acid,
down a little bit for sure. But with concentration and hard work, I've been able to. I'm not going to say I can taste it as well as I should, but I've gotten way better at it. So, and that could be the case for everybody out there. This is a muscle memory. It's your brain and your tongue working together, and of course your nasal passage, because that's where you get most of your taste from. You can work on your palate. You have to work at it, and it's frustrating. It's very frustrating if it doesn't come to you easily. I'm not a natural taster. I had to work very hard at it. You can work and get it. You don't have to be a natural taster. Some people, it's just like there's some natural athletes, and then there's other athletes that do great with some hard work. And I think that could be the case for tasters too.
Well, you can have an inclination to something, but to be great at anything, me personally, I don't believe anyone has a natural ability to do anything at a high level without practice. And I think most top athletes would agree with that. When you look at basketball players, football players, whoever, you look at the people who are at the top. Obviously they had something there, but they have to work hard. Most of the top people work harder at something they're naturally gifted as than people who are not as naturally gifted, if that makes sense. You bring that to the table.
What I'm trying to say is, like, if you have two people on paper, if you looked at their physical attributes,
Gotcha.
and one is clearly should have been a superstar at the sport, and they weren't, and this other person who didn't have the physical tools, didn't have the speed or the height or the weight, whatever it is that sport needs, but became an elite through hard work.
Great analogy.
So, and I think that's kind of like,
analogy.
there are some people that it comes easier to, and some people that it comes harder to. I think I fall on the harder side, but I can overcome that through hard work. But man, if you have that ability to begin with and add hard work to it, that's when you become a master.
That's when you're elite, yeah. But I don't think it's kind of like golf. I think golf's a great analogy. Like, you listen to some of the top pros, and like when they're doing a casual interview, and I've listened to a few of these on a podcast here and there, and they're like when they're not on tour and they're like just playing golf at like their local country club or wherever, the people they play golf with. 'Cause
Right.
A lot of these top guys don't play with other pros a lot on the off season, because they're just, relaxing and, keeping limber. And they often say, like, they get beat a lot by club pros
Right.
or like the top amateur, and say that, it's not a question of your game. It's like the guys at the upper echelon of the PGA, they're not better than your local club pro or your local junior champion. It's a mental thing. It's
Sure.
like they have the shots, they have the stroke, they've got the game to beat
Right.
anybody, but it's the grind.
Yeah.
And I think your training as a chef taught you the grind.
Yeah.
And you don't get tired of tasting wines. You don't get tired of putting lists together. You don't get tired because the grind is just like these guys. They have the game, but when you're out there and all the people are watching and all the pressure's on, it's the grind. It leaves them.
Sure.
To where I think like a lot of somms, like even some master somms, I bet, don't work in restaurants.
Right.
Because their palates probably wouldn't, I don't know if their game would stand up to the service aspect of it.
Right.
So you probably got a lot of people out there in the service industry that are somms that probably have the palate of a master somm but don't have the time.
Right.
Or the,
Yeah.
I gotta take care of service.
Yeah.
I gotta build a wine list. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? I can't go and
It does.
taste Greek wines for 6 months.
Those tests
Yeah.
are so intense. and
So
you
it's
have
not
to-
really
you have to-
indicative of your ability. So I think everybody's ability affects, or everybody's natural inclinations to what they do affects where they end up.
Mhm.
Because I think kind of like the golf analogy is probably a lot of, mid-level somms who could go to the next level if they weren't in the grind.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people
Yeah.
who do the grind who would never make it to sommelier because they can't do the grind.
Right. Yeah.
It's hard. People joke about it. They're like, "Oh, you drink wine all day." Ed."
Yeah.
No, it's a grind. I mean, you have to do. I mean, you get sick of it. I mean, I was in Oregon last week, and by Friday, I didn't want any more wine.
Well.
I mean, like for real. I mean, I was like, I don't want any more wine. I mean, I'm sick of it.
But
And that was a week.
You
A
were
week.
sending me videos and pictures, and that hurt, by the way. I was excited for you, but I was like, God, I wish I was there.
Well, like we said, I mean, Ed came over Sunday.
But those
and we
were some of the
tasted some
best wines I've
and
ever had in my life.
I mean, we talked about you all week. I mean, all week. I mean, like my family was getting sick of it. They're like, is there another subject that's not Ed? Thank you. Because you would have been, I mean, we got to do it together. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Thank you again. But like for me, and I drink wine every day. I love wine. I never get sick of it. I was sick of it. I was sick of wine by the end of the week. But you understand you can't like throw your hands up and go, no, you can't take a week off. You can't take time off. You've got to keep at the grind. And even when it's fun, even when it was fun, I was having fun. I mean, my
Oh, yeah.
God, are you kidding me? I was out in the Willamette Valley at some of the best wineries in the world, and I was still like, I don't want to drink wine anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, by Friday, I went and got some IPAs. And just like, I just want to drink beer on
Yeah.
the porch.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of wine. I'm so sick of the intensity of it. I learned a ton. I mean, a ton.
And
But
they're really on their game out there, too.
They are, and and we only went. Now, of course, I was able to hand pick where we went, and so every place we went was old school.
Yeah.
30 years was like the early people,
Mhm.
and but like my family were peppering me with questions the whole time,
Right.
and I was like, I'm so glad I've learned so much from you, because I was able to answer probably 80% of all the questions, because I've learned so much from you, these years from it that has nothing to do with like what I did when I ran a wine program. It tastes good. It went on the list, and I know a little bit. I know enough about it to be stupid. But, you're really intense on it. And so it really opened my eyes when I was answering all these questions all week, how much I've learned from you in this process. Not just how's the acid.
Right,
It's
yeah.
just like there's so many peripheral things. And like when we were at St. Innocent, being able to talk about they're really into these sparklings and how they've been doing all these dosage and how theirs is different from, the Cremant and the Cava and all these things. It was just like, I learned so much from you. You don't think about it.
Right.
You just walk around with it. And then you actually get in scenarios where you're tested.
Mhm.
And you're like, thank you.
Chef,
Thanks for all the education.
that's the
appreciate
way
it.
I am every week at the chef's table. When we're pairing wines together and deciding, this is what we're going to roll with these 8 wines, and then, when we're delivering to these fine folks and telling them about it, and they ask a question, and I always have this, the reason why I grind it out is I always have a fear that I won't have an answer.
I get that.
I'm scared to
Oh my
death
God, I get
of
it.
someone asking me
totally
something
get
I
it.
don't know the answer to. So, but I love, there is some kind of reassurance
I get
in
that.
you when you can answer someone's question.
It's one of the best feelings you'll ever have in your life.
And you don't know, it's like you don't really keep inventory of what you know. It's just in there, right? You're not.
You
like,
don't know till you're tested, like, for real.
Yeah.
I don't mean like in a comfortable situation,
Right.
but like in a.
Like the lights are on.
Oh, I mean, it's like
we
you
got a $2,000 table in front of
You're
us.
gonna look like an idiot, and there's gonna be
These
people here
people-
who've done this.
They've been to DC.
They've been
to
all
LA,
over,
They've been to
and,
San
like-
Fran.
Like they're out there
New
doing
York.
like $500 a person chef table,
Mhm.
not our 150.
Yeah.
So, and with like chefs that are, household names.
Right.
No one knows our names outside of, Mount Airy, but we have several people who've been to chef tables for, Robuchon and like all these huge
Yeah,
institutional
per se.
people per se, and they
A
come
French
here
Laundry.
and they're like, it's on par.
Yeah.
And like, it's like, oh, okay, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm gonna die happy right now.
Yeah.
Like
that's
when we can
that's
do.
the ultimate compliment.
something.
That and people that come back over and over.
But it's not just the food. People don't understand. Some people do, but like when we get those folks who have done chef tables all over the country and the world and come in and they understand. I don't know how many people understand the breadth of your wine list and your knowledge and how you. It would be. Because it's easy. It would be really easy to do a half-butt pairing. You could just like have, say, you know what, I'm gonna get
Just throw a
$50 calves, and
softball.
I'm gonna do. Because everybody has access to great wine. All you gotta do is spend money, and you could have home run, like everybody knows.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You could just do the big name
Fill in the
stuff.
big name.
Fill in the
Yeah.
big names and go, man, give me $500, off you go.
Yeah.
How you do it with all these obscure wines that are a result of the grind, to me, is so much. It's like somebody who takes chicken and makes something like, you can't believe how good
That's why we love the French, right?
it is. Because they
are
take
the-
something.
They take
The mundane, and
the
they
mundane.
make it remarkable. And it's like there's an English chef that I just love and adore. He ended up getting a Michelin star finally. He's deserved them for years. But anyway, he's got a chicken dish on his flagship restaurant. It's like truffles and foie gras, and it's in pastry, and it's just stunning, and it's gorgeous. And I just love that that's like one of his 3 signature dishes.
Right.
Chicken. And he's got like a Wagyu brush lobster and a couple other things. But anyway, but his chicken, it's always like him and this other guy, it's like, no, chicken can be the best thing ever. And you're like,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
You can take any dumbass can take $150 bottle of wine and go, this goes with steak. You haven't done anything.
Yeah.
This guy will find an $18 bottle from some village that doesn't have power, and pair it with this thing, and it's genius.
Well, I enjoy the challenge.
It's such a privilege to be a part of it. So I'm geeking out.
I
Sorry.
think it's because,
I'm loving. I missed him for a week, and now
know.
I'm like, oh, my Ed.
we can't be apart for a week. It's just not good.
Not gonna happen again, I promise.
So
We're normally 2 or 3 day guys.
that's about it.
Yeah, and that's like a week is way too long.
I think that chef mentality that I have of making the best out of everything I think that kind of gets into,
Without a doubt.
the way I'm selecting wines.
Without a doubt.
And
And
I
it
tell-
puts you in the upper echelon. It puts you so far. You talking about advantages. Most people can't draw on what you draw from. And that's why your pairings are so much better than everybody else's. And it's just true.
Those are very kind words, Chef. I appreciate it.
But it's just true. I mean, you know, I don't have to say it. I mean, it's just true.
Well, we take some chances. We roll the
Well,
dice.
you're supposed to. I mean,
Yeah.
we do it on both ends. I mean, we serve some weird food. We serve some weird wine. But you know what? That's why you come to a chef's table. You don't come to a chef's table for the softball.
Right.
Like, that's what the dining room is
You can
for.
do that yourself.
Anybody can do that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not coming here for that. And like, and every now and then, there's nothing wrong in an 8-course dinner to have a steak and potato.
Oh, we do that.
And we do that, but what we focus on is the quality. It's normally like over the top,
Yeah.
either minimalist preparation to show
Right.
execution of it, or the quality's over the top. But I mean, it is so hard to pair 8 things every week. I mean, my goodness
Well,
gracious.
I can't tell you how many times
Spoiled
I've
rotten.
stormed out of the kitchen into the dining room,
While I'm laughing.
and I'll be behind the going through all my inventory of wine, and one of my employees was like, "Are you okay?" And like, how the hell am I supposed to find a wine for this, and this on the same plate?
And I'll take a little sheet of paper of the ingredients with a spoon, and I'll go like that,
Yeah.
and I'll just start laughing.
Yeah.
And I'll just start laughing because it's just like, nah, he'll never get this.
Well,
I mean, I finally got him, I stumped him, but I haven't stumped him yet.
You put the most, I guess, unexpected pairings of ingredients on the same plate, and the guests absolutely understand it. I never say it. I love how I don't like to tell people what a wine's supposed to taste like or what's on their plate. You tell them what you want to tell them, and then I like to just let them organically respond or comment, and people get the risk that you're taking. And whenever they do, I'm like, instead of like saying, "Oh yeah, it's amazing how it does that," no, because I'm salty, I say, "Yeah, imagine trying to have to pair wine with
it. Who cares you eating it?
Who cares how long it took them to make it and put it together? What about me?"
I had to find something from the Loire to do with it. But that's one of the things I don't like. Like when I said the chocolate thing, like most of the places out in Oregon had, thank you very much, on their tasting sheets. There was a couple of that didn't, and I complimented them on that. But most of the ones had these elaborate tasting notes. Well, now, first of all, like, this would be the equivalent of their entire tasting method.
That's like 6 wines.
You would have 6 wines, they would literally splash it.
That's
They would splash your glass.
At $50 a pop.
50 bucks a pop. And then it'd be like, well, if you want us to waive the tasting, you can buy, half the cellar. But I mean, it's like a splash.
And
Now,
you did.
I did. And I would say 80% of the places I went, they waived the tasting because I talked to them and, I'd be like, industry or whatever. And they would be like, "Oh, well, your tasting's free because you're industry." But I wouldn't want someone to come here and us waive their tasting. Of course, we're not pouring $150 bottles
Right.
at a tasting. There were several places where they were pouring $100 plus bottles at the tasting. Several places.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't going to be that person. So I either signed up for the wine club or bought wine.
Yeah.
Simply because I wasn't going to be the guy that showed up, took someone's time, drank their wine, and left.
And didn't get back.
Even though they were splashes. You talk about how I spoil people. Are you kidding me? Like when you come here to Thursday night, or even just a normal tasting, you walk in off the street and do a tasting at the winery.
Yeah.
And
Very generous.
we'll be talking about that. because I really feel like we're good enough to do more appointment-based tastings and more expanded tastings with like where it's half Mississippi, half your choices, like more often. Because like the world out there, it was very eye-opening to see what people pour, what they talk about, and to see people respond to it. I mean, we went to this one place in White Rose, and I told you we went on Monday, or was it Tuesday? We went early in the week. It was like 40 degrees, pouring rain, March, nothing going on. The place was packed.
Yeah.
It was like an old Viking ship, and it took 40 minutes to get there. They were pouring $100 splashes and this and that. The place was packed, and everybody left with boxes on their arm.
I bet it was good.
The entry-level wine was $60 a bottle. Entry level.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it wasn't good. It was good, but it wasn't great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The 120-some bottle was great, but it was only great. It wasn't like,
Change your life.
I've had so many $50 wines that were as good. And I'm not
Like-
saying better, but as
Yeah,
good.
sure. Like that Forest Sham Chardonnay.
And their processes, I think, really is what they're charging for. Because, like, these places are old. I mean, you're talking, they've been around 40, 50 years. We ain't paying for the land. That land's been paid for
Should be,
10
yeah.
times over.
Should be, yeah.
And so, but I mean, they hand crank their grapes. There's not a mechanical press. The people who harvest have these little white linen bags, and they hand pick into bags so the grapes don't get crushed.
That's awesome.
And they do whole cluster, meaning they put these they don't pick the grapes like in a machine that rattles them. They're clipping the whole clusters, putting them in barrels that have cranks and screws down, and they hand crank all the juice down.
That's
That's
cool.
what you're paying for.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether the end product is better than
Right.
some other thing, it's like you've got to honor that. And I was honoring that because it's like the wine is secondary out there. There's stewardship of the land, how they harvest, how they care for it, how they do things. That's what they're charging you
Not
for.
to mention their complete dedication to wine. I mean, like they are all about wine. It's not a hobby.
It's their whole life. It's their
It's
lifestyle.
not like a side gig.
No, there's no, even the people just randomly working at these places were all in. I mean, all in. There was a guy, Shay, who had worked all over France, all over the place. He's like, well, I couldn't hesitate when I had this opportunity.
Right.
I mean, and like Shea Vineyard is in the middle of a cow farm. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
There is nothing there. In
Except
that whole
delicious
county
grapes.
except grapes and hazelnut trees and some farm. I mean, there's nothing going on. There's nothing to do. These people are so in. They're so in. He's like, oh, well, I couldn't hesitate. I had to leave and come here.
Right.
For the opportunity
Man, is that
to
awesome.
work there. I mean, it was life-changing. It really was. And we've got a lot of wines left to drink through. And I was telling somebody, like Sunday night, Ed and I drank a Riesling and a Pinot, one from Shea, one from St. Innocent. And I was like, I don't think I even talked about the wine because I told you the stories.
Yeah.
And that's how important it was, or the impact rather, that I didn't even care what the wine tastes like. I just want to talk about the stories. And when when your story is better than your wine, you're doing something right.
Oh man, there's a lot to do and see in our country for sure. I mean, you think about Oregon really just ramping up in the 80s, the 1980s,
Yeah.
not the 680s or like you
Right.
think about the thousands of years that the old world has.
But even by American standards, I mean, a winery that's been around 45 years, or like they're the elders.
They are.
They're the pioneers.
Absolutely. Well, I know I'm up against some phone call deadlines, so I think
Oh,
I'm
we've
gonna.
rambled on. I apologize.
Oh, there's
for-
nothing to be sorry about, Chef. We missed you dearly last
Wow.
week. We hated not having you on the video. Now you're back. We'll be back in the routine of drinking delicious wines together.
I'm so happy to be back and in the fold and with my brother. It was a long week without him and all the people here that I love and care about. But I learned a lot. Hope to use some of what I learned to make everything we do here better, which is the purpose of life. And you're also going to get some brisket, leek, and potato with this.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers that. Enjoy. Enjoy. Love you guys. See you soon.
See you soon. Next week, we're going to drink some Oregon wine on our video.
10-4.
And we'll do it. Take care.